I'm with Dick Brickner here in Columbia, Tennessee today. I'm beginning to feel like I need to start a Beekeepers of Tennessee series too. I've been around. Byron Ferris is on the other side of that camera. He's been helping me here. But Dick is the president of the Columbia Area Beekeepers Association in Columbia, Tennessee, and sounds to me like a pretty substantial club. That you have members from many counties around, I take it.
Yes, we do. Yeah, I think we're the largest club outside of the Nashville area.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what caught my eye in our visit, and the reason we drug out the camera, is he's a medium super beekeeper. If you look at his colonies, everything is a medium, including his brood nest. So it looks like you got queen excluders over the third medium. So I'm just going to ask you why you choose to use mediums for your brood nest.
Well, when I got back into beekeeping in 2008, I had the full route, shallows, mediums, and deeps. And I think by about 2012, I'm 78 years old now.
You're 78? Is that
78.
My goodness.
And at that point in my life, those 90-pound deeps were impossible at that point. So maintaining an inventory of 3 different sizes of equipment was also a chore. So I elected to go all one way in the mediums. So I'm using 9-frame spacing, just one item you got to carry in stock, and it's universal. The frames can be used in either the brood section or the honey section.
So are you using 9-frame spacers in your brood boxes just so it's all the same, or is there another reason?
Yes. I did that primarily in the honey supers first because it allowed the bees to draw the wax out further, and it makes it much easier to remove the cappings. But in looking at what it accomplished in the brood section is, I think that extra space in there in the cluster area in the winter has made a difference in keeping some of those hives alive through the winter weather. Because I'd say 90% of my hives do have brood all winter long.
Okay. So, what kind of bees are we running here?
I think we'd call them generic, everything.
Generic, yeah, I got lots of generic too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're obviously making honey. Well, you got 3 and 4 supers on all of these colonies here.
Yes.
So I know you got black locust and little basswood. What else do you got going on?
Tulip poplar and redbud are some of our early sources.
Okay.
And other than that, it's strictly wildflower around here. We don't have any large crops that are strictly suitable for a single variety of honey.
Well, I see a lot of Dutch white clover everywhere in this area. Do you feel like that's giving you some honey? I
never see my bees on clover.
Really?
And I've got to think the reason is there's better nectar sources they are finding. It's rare I'll see bees on clover around here, and I had a beekeeper call me the other day and he told me the same thing at his house. He wasn't seeing bees on clover at all. But it's always a backup. I guess if other things failed, they would be on the clover.
So we just spotted a swarm in a walnut tree here, and it's late. What is today? About the 12th or 13th
11th
of June?
or 12th.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's pretty late for a swarm in this area.
Well, see, I checkerboard, and I pretty well delay swarms until about early June. And at this point, it's not a loss because I've got most of my nectar flow in at this point, so I'll recover in time for the fall nectar flow.
Yeah. Do you try to harvest any of that fall goldenrod honey, or just leave it for the bees?
I take any capped honey that's suitable off the end of September up to mid-October, reducing my hives down to no more than 3 mediums depending on the population in the hive at that time, and come back with supplemental sugar syrup feeding to really fill the colony back up for the winter season.
How much sugar syrup do you think you're putting in the fall?
I would say
Average.
probably about 30 pounds.
That's a substantial amount. We do the same
That's
thing,
a medium, yeah.
Yeah, I preach that all the time. Just pile it in. If they don't feel like a box of rocks, I say you're not done feeding.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's a big deal. So you got 3/4 inch entrances, I see.
Yes.
That's for. Or are these screen bottom boards? Am I looking at?
I have all screen bottom boards.
Okay.
I'll put the plastic board in the wintertime, and I don't insulate my hives at all, but I haven't had winter losses on my production colonies because I do some timely warm weather syrup feeding in December and January.
Okay.
And I think that's really pulled the colonies through the winter season.
When's your first pollen show up in this neighborhood?
Typically about mid-February, the silver maple trees start putting out a nice red pollen.
Yeah.
And they hit it very heavily.
Red pollen, really?
Yes.
Okay. We have a lot of maples, but we don't get red pollen from them.
The silver maples do provide a red pollen, yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Something else you got going on here that I caught my eye is your neighbor put up a solid fence on the north side of your bees, which is wonderful. So she's paying for your windbreak. That's
Yes,
a good
that
thing.
helps a lot.
Yeah. So does everybody have an upper entrance like this?
I've put those on. I originally started with them right on top of the queen excluder, and I found that extra gap in there was just getting filled with drawn wax.
Yeah.
So I moved them to the top, and I really don't see a large volume of traffic in and out of those, so I don't know if they really help us that much.
What's this? What do you got going on right here? What's this?
That's called a vent super. It has 2 holes each end, and on some of my major colonies I have found them building comb in that entire box.
Maybe a little bit of a backup plan if they get plugged out, huh?
And I think it's helped avoid some swarms, yes.
So, and you've been beekeeping a long time. What'd you say, 80?
Well, I had a couple hives back in the late 80s, and then got back into beekeeping in 2008.
Okay, so you've been doing it a long time. Started with a package, you said, from Kelly.
Oh, my first package from Kelly came in 1987. $19.
$19.
That's
yeah.
the old days, never again.
The very old days, yeah. I have kind of a deep, dark secret. Every once in a while I share it. You know, I've made thousands and thousands of packages, but I've never used a package. I always have used nukes and make splits.
I start 4 to 6 new colonies every summer, so I have some backup. In the fall, I found that I do have supersedures that just don't get mated well because of a lack of drones at that time of the year. So
Yeah, okay.
I have something I can recombine with the hive and not lose the hive then going into the winter.
Do you sell any bees? Do you sell colonies?
If I have some hives left over going into the spring, I'll sell them to beekeepers that are starting, yes.
Well, because of your checkerboarding technique, you can actually, you may not have to split colonies as severely as somebody like me. I have to count on splitting because
yes.
I can't. That checkerboarding is time consuming.
Very time consuming.
And I use splitting to accomplish
Yes.
swarm control.
Yep.
So with checkerboarding, you don't have to do that as much.
Yes. It's rare that I'll see a division type swarm before June 1st. We just had one this morning. It's up in the walnut tree, and I'll get it down later, but I may have some supersedure swarms in May, but none of those really hive splitting swarms in April and May like a lot of beekeepers see.
Yeah.
That
Interesting.
take half the colony population away.
So
but-
everything you do is with medium frames, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the bees seem gentle enough. Your generic mutts seem okay.
Oh, but they do sting.
Oh yeah, they all sting. So do you bring in stock from out of the area, from some, or do you just let your own bees do their
No,
thing?
this is just stock from my colonies.
Okay. Looks like it's mostly Italian, 3-banded or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And you were just showing me your computer. You have a hive stand on, or a.
Oh, we'll go back to that.
You have a
broodminder scale.
Yeah.
That scale sits right under the front end of the hive. And if you go to the website becounted.org and click on the View Map button on the bottom of the page, you can pull up the map of the United States and zoom in on Tennessee, and you'll get to this and 2 other of my scales, and you can see exactly what's happening.
So you said something interesting earlier when we were eating inside. You're way over the state average for honey production. I think Tennessee, Georgia's probably the same, around 60 pounds average.
Yes, that's what they advertise.
You're averaging a lot more than that. What do you think you make average in 10 years?
2 years ago I had 161 pounds per hive. Last year was an off season because of the hard April freeze, and it was only 112 pounds last year.
So 112 is considered not so good?
Compared to the year before.
What's your worst year?
Well, I've been getting better every year because of the practices that I've been doing. Yes, yeah. So I kind of expect every year to be at least 150 pound average per colony.
That's pretty good considering you don't have a summer flow. That's basically a spring, late spring kind of production period.
Yes.
Now you mentioned that this field back here sometimes is soybeans. Do you ever see an increase on the soybeans? Increase in honey volume?
You can't really tell because the soybean flowers over a 2-month period, so it's not a big nectar flow in a 10-day period. It's just gradual that whole time.
Yeah. Well, I guess even if they don't lose weight, you're winning, aren't you?
Yes. And I did not see any hive weight loss last summer, so we had just enough nectar flow to maintain high weight going into the fall, but we had an excellent fall nectar flow.
Yeah, that's great. So sometimes, you mentioned that sometimes this is a cornfield, but it's field corn and you don't experience any losses from them spraying the corn?
No.
If that was sweet corn, that'd be a different scenario.
They would have to spray sweet corn frequently for corn earworm problems, yes. Yeah.
So these are all your honey supers. You store all this outdoors all year long?
I started storing in these stacks. I have a screened bottom and a screened top, so nothing can get into the stack, and it's worked very well versus storing it in my bee shed and putting paramoth on
So
it.
you don't put paramoth on those?
No, I didn't.
So, okay.
This is the first year I did it. It worked very well.
Interesting. So did you do anything to treat them for moths before you put them in that position like that with the screens?
When I remove my honey supers from my hives, I'll let the bees clean them out here in the yard, and I'll cycle every frame through a freezer overnight before they go into the boxes here.
Okay.
So if there's any potential wax moth eggs on those frames, the freezer took care of them.
That's good. We get asked all the time, what do you do for wax moths? And this sounds like a good trick. It's just window screen? Or is it 1/8 inch hardware cloth? Window screen, okay, yeah. Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Yeah.
Great.
I have 2 shallows on this hive and several other hives as I'm producing comb honey in the shallows.
Why do you like the shallows for the comb?
Because I put my my comb honey in wide mouth pint jars, and it's just the right depth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they're fanning the entrance. It's warm out here today.
It's quite warm.
Yeah.
Now,
awesome.
I will not let these hives get higher than 7 boxes. In past years, I had as many as 10 boxes, and it's very difficult to work hives doing a checkerboarding technique. So this year, as the hives were filling and needed an 8th box, I instead took the top box off and moved it to a smaller hive. Works fine.
Great. Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate your time.
Hey, I'm glad you were able to make it here. Yes.
Any parting words of wisdom for new beekeepers or anything like that? This is your chance.
Yeah. You got to put the work into it if you want the results. That's for sure. Yeah.
That's a good place to end,
Yes.
right there. Yeah.